Maternal grandmother.
Maternal grandmother. My grandfather died very young. I became active again in the organization, not in the beginning because I did not know as many people, but later on I was an adolescent, I was already 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. Dating, it was a little different than we have now, the dating that you make up, to meet somebody. We used to go to the organization and then the boy used to take you home and whatever you wanted to do, you did. I had a curfew, by the way. My father was very strict. He knew where I was going.
What time was?
10:30, 11 o'clock, unless it was really something doing. But it was not. We were afraid to go that late. But the city itself was a more cultural city. We had a tremendous library, big library. Polish, Jewish books.
In the library, in the public library?
No. It was a library that was from the Jewish population. We had an amateur theater. We used to have from different cities, like groups of artists go with a show on the road. We had also in the other city, in Sokolov. That was the way for them to make a living. Otherwise, we did not have an access to any theaters. So we had shows. We had speakers from organizations. We had
Do you
lectures.
remember anyone in particular? Do you remember a speaker?
A speaker. It came from the Zionist movement. It came from the Beitar, and they used to come mainly propaganda about Israel, to convince everybody that you have to go to a kibbutz and eventually go to Israel. And I guess that was my goal, eventually to go to Israel.
During the pre-war years, what did you hear about what was happening in Germany?
It was written in the papers, and we felt it in Poland as the years went by. 35, 36, 37, it was, I would say, critical. In the Congress, we used to call it Sejm, it's like the Knesset. You did not have as many representatives as you really had to, being that we were 10% of the population, the total population. They passed a law to forbid the killing of cattle the kosher way.
What year was that, would you remember?
I think it started 1936, if I'm not mistaken, it started then. So the ones, they had a certain amount that they could kill, and the rest, all the butchers had to do it illegally. And if they were caught, they were in troubles. We felt it, as I said, the picketing started. We felt in the government, in the Polish government, there was a tendency not to work exactly with the Germans, but they were good pupils. In other words, Germany was a good teacher for them. And we had in the papers things that were happening in other cities with overturning the push carts and the picketing. It was a known thing. It was no secret. A lot of people, whoever could afford and knew where they want to go, started to immigrate. But unfortunately, the average person, we had a lot of Zionists that encouraged the going. But you lived there for hundreds of years. You have the roots there and the families there, and mainly, trades that you didn't know what you're going to do, how you're going to provide for a living. Israel was not Israel like it's today. We had the English. So it was really, we thought it's going to come. Then there was the annexation of Austria, the annexation of Czechoslovakia. In other words, we saw the clouds in the sky. We did see it. We felt it.
Did you or any members from your family experience any anti-Semitic?
Not directly, I would not say directly. We were living among Jews, the only one that had a drugstore, a teacher, and if not, is the one that used to come in on Saturday and light the oven because you were not allowed to do it. Even people that were not religious. But when I remember Saturday or any holiday, you could feel it in the city, in any small city in Poland, more than you feel it in Israel. The stores were closed, all of them. Religious, no religious, majority were observant Jews. People going to shul, people going Friday night to say close the stores. You could not get anything to buy except a Polish drugstore. So you felt that it's a Jewish atmosphere, so we had no opportunity really to feel unless, as I said, that you went outside of the city and then somebody approached you and you got what you did not ask for it, but you got what they thought that it's coming to you.
For example?
For example, as I said, young boys mainly. We had even in the organization sometimes we used to sing a little loud and it was already 9, 10 o'clock. We had a policeman coming up. Oh, what are you doing here? Why are you so loud? And you don't let the people sleep. I mean, there was no violence, but it was there. It was there.
In your town, specifically in the town where you were living now, what changes occur as Hitler gained power in Europe?
Well, when the war broke out, it was September 1st, 1939, 7 o'clock in the morning. It was over the radio that Germany crossed the borders of Poland. It was expected. It was expected. The 8th of that week, the 8th of September, the Germans were in our city.
Do you remember the day they came in?
Oh, yes. First of all, the first day, the second day, we had refugees already, Polish refugees, mainly peasants, some of the Jews also running away. If one knows the map of Poland, this city, Ostrów, was central Poland, but it was located more to the north, close to Prussia, which was not Germany, it was Prussia. It belonged to Germany. And the border towns were attacked right away. So it took no time. You saw at night peasants with wagons, with horses, with cows, with their belongings going. The skies were ablaze with flames, red. There was fear. We were afraid to leave the house. We didn't know what to do. We saw in the center of the city we had a building that had a clock, a tower, and over there was the police station. They had some offices, and in the cellar was the jail. We saw burning papers in the middle of the night. You saw soldiers, Polish soldiers, that they claimed that Poland was sold. They did not say it openly. The Polish army used to shoot on the Polish army. It was sold. In other words, without knowing, they attacked one another, and some of them ran away. Wednesday we had bombing. We had a raid, and we had bombs falling in the city. We did not have any casualties, but we had some buildings. In the center of that tower clock fell nearby a bomb, and at night people started running, taking something in a knapsack and leaving and going, because we expected that any minute the Germans will come.
Well, what were your parents talking? What were they saying? Were they telling you?
Nothing. It was just fear, it was chaos. You were afraid to go out. If you went out, you looked around. And then Friday morning we saw from one street coming, the tanks.
You remember the name of the street?
Oh, gee. Oh, it's from the street 3 kilometers on that street, on the outskirts of the city. They had a military school for officers, and they came from that Komarova, it was the name of that town, and that's how it's named, like you say, it's Warsaw Gas, it's Warsaw, so the street was named that this is the road to Warsaw. In the beginning, we didn't know who it was, but then we saw like white crosses, like the red cross, and this was a white cross. And we understood that this is not the Polish people, because a lot of people from the police, you saw no police, you saw nobody. It's like abandoned. Then one girl looked out of the window, it was in the morning, there was a shot. She was not killed, but they shot her cheek, to the face. And that's when it started. They started going to the road, on the road to Warsaw. We were like in the middle, and they went to that street. It took 3 weeks to occupy Warsaw.
And they were coming from?
And they were coming from north, from Prussia apparently, and they came from the east. No, it's west. From Germany also. They went the whole length of the Polish border.
But when they crossed your town?
The military, the majority went farther, but they left some Germans in the city to patrol.
What did you see?
On my street, it's not on the main street, on the side street where we had to enter our house, we lived in the back of the store.
What was the name of that street?
Rynek. There was a wagon, believe it or not a car, not a truck, or those peasant wagons, horses, a few German soldiers, but elderly soldiers. Later we found out they were Prussians, from Prussia. And they were cleaning the rifles, cleaning the horses, doing whatever they had to do. We were afraid to go out. But later on, we looked out, we saw somebody going, we went outside. One day, we saw announcements pasted, whatever you had to, on buildings, on poles, that everybody up to the age, starting from the age of 16, male, have to come out from the houses. And when we'll go in and we'll find any of them, you're going to be shot.
And what language were those?
In Polish Polish and German. You had right away the Polish militia, with those armbands. Polacks,
what,
right away,
What armbands?
Then they said police. They were the ones that helped the Germans take care. They were not violent, but somebody had to do it. They couldn't do it, so they worked right away. They told us to open the stores. So we opened the stores. Some of them came in, bought something. The second one came and asked, do you have any German money? You have no right to have any German money. They took away the money. They came in mostly with women. Some of them apparently were prostitutes, The German soldiers asked, where can I get this? And they had right away people that led them where they have to go. They came through the back door.
Back door of what?
To our apartment. Whatever they saw a mandolin, they took it off. They saw a violin, my uncles, they took it away. They saw other articles. My father used to like little antiques, like from Czechoslovakia, porcelain, they took it away. And they left. There was but when they come into the house, it's always with the gun drawn.
Do you remember the men that came into your house to take the things away?
German soldiers.
Can you describe me the uniform?
Soldiers. Now,
can you describe the uniform?
Uniform, I think it was like a not green like the Polish. It was more like a grayish green. not green, it's more gray than green. Hats, boots, and the pets, always with the guns. When they said to go outside, we were afraid. My brother one was 16, 17 years old.
Which one was that? Which brother?
Joseph. And my father. My brother did not go out. My father went out. They gathered all the people when they assembled them outside of the houses, wherever they lived. They took them where the high school was. There was a big yard with usually they did playing ball, whatever it was, in the school. And they gathered them all there. They sat down with their arms behind their heads, raised. And there were speeches, we found out later on.
Where were you at that time?
At home. We were all at home. Nobody walked out.
What were you feeling at that time?
Fear. Whatever we had, my mother said, take this with you. Either it's a piece of jewelry, either it was something else. Take it with you in case we get lost. And we were dressed. We did not undress to go to bed. Food, whatever it was left, because you could not get everyday food. You had to go to the bakery. They were closed. But once in a while, you went and you got. And we had most people expected a little bit. So you had a little sugar, you had a little flour, you had potatoes, you had the basic things that you need to survive. So everybody had something in their pocket and a little package. And we were only listening, what's doing next door, here we had a scream, here we didn't know what was going on. But the final story was that it was a curfew when the Germans came in, from 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning till 4 or 5 in the evening. If they caught you, they shot you. You were not allowed outside. And here it's 5 o'clock, and it's 6 o'clock, and it's 7 o'clock, and my father is not back. We thought that's it. We didn't know. In the morning, my father showed up, and then he told us what happened over there. They read certain things, I don't know, in Polish or in German, I don't even know, that you can stay here, but nobody tells you to go, to leave, but without any rights to do this, to do that. You cannot deal with anything. You cannot, in other words, just exist. You cannot do certain things.
Like what?
Like what? Like go in the street, travel, open the stores. You cannot, the schools were closed. In other words, with no rights. And then they told them to leave. And it was maybe 7 o'clock already. And someone had asked, how can we go, because there is a curfew? If we're going to go show up in the street, we're going to be shot. Don't worry, we arranged it. To make the story short, 15 people were killed right away. And my father did not go to the house because he heard the shooting, and whoever knew somebody on the street on the way to go home knocked at a door and saw who would identify themselves, and the people opened the door for them, and he slept over there, and he came. And once they came in, they took me to work. They saw me and they said, out, raus.
Who's they?
Germans. And I asked, where do I go? Gänsepflücken, to pluck geese. Who knew if it was true or not? So I had asked him, can I take, silly, stupid me. I said, can I take a kerchief? Because the feathers, the down goes to your hair. Why was I worried about these things? He says, yes. And I took it, and I went. And there were other women, and we did it. We plucked the geese. They used to go, they used to rob by the peasants. They had to eat, and that's what they did. When we left, they gave us a piece of bread, half a loaf of bread. And
Did you go to a special place?
a house someplace in the city, you know. And then they told us to go home. It was during the day, and we came home.
And that house belonged to, or who lived in that house?
In the house, it was not a high riser. We had the next door on one side, another one on the other side. At night, we heard they went to the roof. They were running away because they tried to get in through the windows, and they knocked at our door. Open, come, help us. But who's going to help them? We didn't even make a sound. They should not know that people lived there. And that's how it started. We saw what's coming, and people started leaving. We had 3 kilometers on the outskirts of the city was the border. It was not a steady border, what you call a border. It was the beginning. It was only 4 weeks after the Germans came. We were 4 weeks with them. We decided to leave.
Those 4 weeks, there were any other rulings, especially for Jewish, like...
Whatever ruling there was, it was against the Jews. I mean, you did not walk around in the streets. You were sitting in you were afraid. You were afraid. And we decided to leave. And the only means to go is to rent by a peasant a wagon, load whatever you can. The border was not stable. On one side were the Germans, and the other side were the Russians. And we left.
We are going to change tapes now, so we go on with the story. Thank you very much. Would you like some water?
Mm-hmm. Too emotional.
It's okay. Tape number 3. February 12, 1997, survivor Frida Steiner Rubenstein. Mrs. Steiner, before you tell us about your new, before you decided to leave town, what was the Polish population reaction?
Well, it's really hard to describe because, as I mentioned it, we lived among Jews, and if there was 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, they were still the majority in a state of shock because they also did not know what to expect. It's only the single people, street people, either women, either men, they look for opportunity, the hooligans, the whoever, there's always some of them that look for a chance either to gain something, either because they were afraid, so they wanted maybe to cooperate, but I don't think the majority of these people, the low people, I don't think they did it consciously. They were just anti-Yiddish. The majority were anti-Yiddish. The Polish people have a reputation of being anti-Semitic because in no country you had so many concentration camps and so much help of the population that you did have in Poland.
What did you know about Nazism at that time?
We knew what it stood for. We heard about the Mein Kampf. We saw a lot of, not visually, but we knew there were a lot of German Jews that were sent out from Germany before the war started. Supposedly that they were Polish citizens once upon a time. So we knew what to expect. We knew that it was doing, that they were anti-Jewish. We knew what they stand for. And it's frightening. And here we have them in the city. We used to go out during the day and meet neighbors, and everybody was talking. Where should we go? What should we do? What can we take? Should we go? Should we not go? And there were a lot of older people that they remember the first war. And it just happened, what they said, that the ones that ran paid with more lives than the ones that they stayed. But you cannot compare. It was a different Germany then, it was a different war then. And that's why my grandfather in Sokolov didn't leave. Because it's frightening. You don't know where to go. How much can you take with you? You go to nowhere. And nobody expected what it's going to take. The majority of the people that ran away in the beginning were men. They left the families because they thought that the first thing what they're going to do is they're going to harm the men, but never the women and the children. And that's why so many men ran away and they left the families behind. I had on my street one German, the one that was standing and cleaning, the Prussian guy, an elderly man. We walked out, not far away from the house, and he asked me where he can get a cup of tea. And I said, can I bring you one? I live here. He says, yes. And I went in and I brought out a cup of tea. And he told me to taste it. Maybe it was poisoned. So I did taste it. He took from the other side, he drank it. And I had said something, I don't remember what. He says, Fräulein, das ist Krieg. This is a war.
What language did you speak to him?
German, I knew a little. I took 3 years in public school. I was the last class they took as a foreign language German. They did not teach any more German in Poland. They used to. And as I said, it was a sad thing to do, what people were leaving.
And you decided, your family
my
decided?
father, or not me, my father decided we're going to go.
Who went?
The whole family, my mother, my father, and 5 children. I was the oldest one. And we rented the wagon.
From
the
whom?
First thing from one of the peasants. I don't know how he got them, where he got them. Maybe one recommended. The first thing we took bedding. You know, we had those down covers, pillows, and then clothing, and a few dishes, whatever it was possible. But you take an established home, what do you take? And how much can you take? And where are you going to go?
Did you take any religious objects with you?
Oh, sure, there's Sforim, prayer books, the talit, the tefillin, my father packed, I helped, and as much as we could, we loaded up the food that we had with us. We locked the door and left.
What did you take as a young girl?
Pictures. Most of my pictures that I had. My clothing. What did I have? That a girl, has to cherish to.
How old were you at the time?
18 and a half. I had a nice youth. I was active. I think I was popular. A rich cultural life. We had a lot of older from our organization used to study abroad.
Which organization?
Belgium, Warsaw, and they used to come for vacation. We used to have lectures. We had discussions. We had to read. We had to.
What organization did you belong in?
Same, Hashomatzaya. What as I said, it was a leftist organization. People called them communists. Even my father once said, "Oh, are you going to the communists?" I said, "What do I know about communism? It's not communism, it's Zionist, first of all." But a lot of activities, and I must say I owe a lot of my acquired knowledge to that time. because it's not just dancing the horror like when you're little. It was more. We explained to the younger children about sex, we talked about pacifism, we had a certain list of books that we had to read. Some of them were in the original of Yiddish, we had to read it in Yiddish.
Do you remember which ones?
Oh, gee, I read all the Bialik's and Mendel Machasfurim and Sholem Aleichem, and then I read in Polish Gogol and Panaytis Strati and the Polish literature, the Russian literature, Tolstoy and Dostoevsky and Emil Zola and Victor Hugo, and
Could you take any books with you?
We took them out from the library. Nobody had a library in the house. We took them from the library. We borrowed one from another. We read. We had discussions about it. I remember once, it was like a quote from Bonchesreich. Everybody read it, and then the outcome that his requirement was only a roll with butter. So the psychology, the way the Jews taught, their upbringing, it was good. And here, all of a sudden, just go. We left. We went on the Russian side. We went to one small town that
Which direction did you go?
Towards the Russian side, towards east. We knew that 3 kilometers we're going to have the Russians. And I must say, I am not pro-communist, I'm not pro-Russian, but during the war, I have to say that they behaved themselves civil. I don't mean civil, personal behavior in general. They let in the people.
Which town were you?
We slept over by a cousin of my father's. We knew that he's there. It was maybe 17 kilometers on the outskirts of the town. We slept there. He made some arrangement. And then we continued to another city, Chechanovce. And that's where we stopped. It was Poland, but it was occupied by the Russians.
What did you see on the way there, when you were on the road?
Oh, people leaving, going, like Exodus. But when we came there, we were among our people, but we were refugees. The Russians took away the best apartments. There was nothing to rent. And what are we going to